Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The story begins on a blood-filled border in an abandoned warehouse. Kevin goes to meet smugglers working on the black market. They're bringing him something they call alien technology. As soon as they open the bag, they pull out tubes full of strange chips, and even the smugglers themselves don't really know what they are. Kevin immediately contacts Gwen to analyze these chips. Ben notices something is wrong. The Omnitrix starts glitching and getting scrambled, as if the chip is affecting it. One of the sellers gets angry, and we see a woman wearing a helmet confidently say, "We are the plumbers," which means the space police, a secret team that protects the planets. At that moment, Ben is surprised and asks her how she managed to get there. She removes her helmet and shocks them. It turns out to be Elena, an old acquaintance who, along with her father Victor, was expelled years ago. But what Ben doesn't know is that someone is watching them from afar and recording every word. Ben is even more surprised, saying his grandfather told him that Elena and her father disappeared suddenly, but never found the real reason. Ben, still not grasping what's happening, says that his grandfather told him they left the plumbers of their own will, but Elena denies this, making him feel something is off. He asks her what she's doing with these black market smugglers. Elena reveals that she set up the whole warehouse meeting just to meet them and asks for their help, because her father disappeared years ago without a trace. At that moment, the person who was watching them starts controlling the chips. Suddenly, capsules break open, and the chips spread in the air like a swarm of fierce insects, attacking everyone in the place. Ben tries to defend himself and reaches for the Omnitrix to transform into an alien, but to his shock, it's not working. Completely unresponsive. Gwen and Kevin find themselves facing the swarm alone and have to deal with it themselves. The situation is chaotic, and the place turns into literal hell. In the midst of the battle, the sellers jump on their motorcycles and escape, leaving the place collapsing around them as the insects start destroying the warehouse supports, causing it to fall on whoever's inside. After barely escaping, Ben examines the chips and suspects they're a type of technology remotely controlled. Suddenly, he spots the person who'd been watching them, standing in the shadows, and immediately suspects he's the one behind all this and controlling the insects. They decide they can't just stand there, they must act before the disaster gets worse. Ben tries again to transform using the Omnitrix and chooses the spider form, but due to the interference from the chips, something goes wrong. Instead of turning into the spider, he transforms into the one who can freeze everything. He takes a deep breath and releases an icy blast that traps the chip swarm inside a huge block of ice. The ice then shatters into millions of pieces, taking out a large number of the insects in one blow. The swarm is finally contained, but Ben isn't satisfied and quickly chases after the person controlling the insects, trying to freeze him with his icy breath. But the villain is faster, jumps out of the way and sends a new swarm toward Gwen. Ben is forced to leave the fight to help her, and unfortunately, that was the moment the villain was waiting for to escape, taking Elena with him. The situation becomes very strange, and Gwen and Kevin become completely convinced that Elena was involved with him, and that the whole thing was a setup from start to finish. But Ben can't accept that so easily and keeps thinking, especially since he feels something doesn't add up about Elena and her father's expulsion from the plumbers. So he decides to go to headquarters and ask his grandfather himself about Victor. At the Intergalactic Communications Center, the three wait for Max's next trip, Ben's grandfather, my friend. Meanwhile, they decide to take the opportunity to examine some of the chips they collected. Here comes the surprise. These chips aren't just technological devices. They also have a source that can be tracked via computer. While Kevin is working, Ben suggests leaving all this and going to look for Elena, but Gwen doesn't like this idea. The two get into a heated argument, and just as the fight starts, Max enters, the great leader of the plumbers. As soon as he sees the chip they're examining, he says with concern, "I've seen this before, but I can't remember exactly where." Ben immediately seizes the opportunity and says this is the perfect chance to ask about Victor's expulsion. Suddenly, the alarm goes off, meaning there's an intruder in headquarters. Everyone moves quickly, following the energy signals until they reach Max's office. The surprise, they find Elena standing there waiting for them. As soon as Max sees her, he shouts at her, "What are you doing here?" and tries to kick her out immediately. But this time, Ben takes her side and explains that she's here to ask for help, that her father Victor has disappeared, and he might have been kidnapped by the person controlling the insects. But the team, especially Gwen and Kevin, still don't believe her, and Kevin takes her out of the lab. Max stays with his children and grandchildren, explaining the truth. He opens the computer and shows them Victor's file. He tells them that the man was expelled and banned from entering the space police because he was caught stealing those strange chips from the secret warehouse. That's why they erased his name and expelled him forever. But Ben refuses to be convinced that Elena is to blame for what her father did. He says that Elena is their only thread to reach whoever is behind all this and who is controlling these insects. But Max refuses to believe that Elena is innocent. But Ben leaves the headquarters without permission and steals his grandfather's motorcycle, heading out alone to catch up with Elena. The two of them are on their way to the place where she found those alien chips. But at the same time, Victor, Elena's father, is walking alone in the darkness until he encounters two thugs who try to rob him and tell him that he's no longer alone in this place. Suddenly, he smiles a sinister smile and tells them, "I'm not alone," then opens his arm, releasing a huge swarm of chips. The swarm attacks them, taking over their bodies and turning them into mindless, will-less zombies under his control. Meanwhile, Ben and Elena arrive at the suspicious place and start searching for any evidence, unaware that the real danger, Victor, is outside with his army of infected people. They load crates into a company car named Ship It. Inside, Ben and Elena are still investigating, not knowing that danger is literally at the door. At the end of the corridor, they reach a small lab. They find notes written in his handwriting and a shipping form from the same company. While they try to piece things together, a strange group suddenly bursts in, claiming they've come to help. But Ben stays alert and notices something terrifying. Their eyes have an unnatural glow. Elena, who has experience with the chips, sees them moving under their skin. The shock hits both of them. These people are all controlled. The alien chips have completely taken over them. Suddenly, one of the infected says, "Come to meet the Queen," and they all start approaching menacingly. Ben tries to use the Omnitrix, but as usual, the interference affects it, and he can't choose any transformation. With no time to think, they have to run at full speed, escaping through the back door via the emergency exit. But they find themselves still surrounded with no way out as the infected group closes in. At that moment, Ben takes a crazy risk and uses the unstable Omnitrix, trying to trigger it. The Omnitrix explodes in a powerful shockwave, blasting everyone around and opening a gap for them to escape. They jump on their motorbikes and begin their escape into the night. But suddenly, Elena slips and falls off her motorcycle. Ben immediately goes back to rescue her, carries her on his back, and keeps running through the crowd until they're completely out of danger. While he's still trying to process what happened, he realizes the next step is to go to the company. At the same time, at the Space Police headquarters, they finally track the power source of the chips and discover that most of the energy is concentrated at the main distribution center of Ship It. They infiltrate the place secretly and start searching through papers and files, finding records of shipments distributed to different countries around the world. But as they search, a strange employee appears and tells them, "The company is closed." Gwen asks, "What are you doing here now?" The man responds in a weird tone, "My mission is to serve the Queen." They realize he is one of the infected. Without thinking, Kevin grabs a nearby plank, absorbs its properties, and punches the man, sending him flying. They seize the opportunity, grab the documents, and run to the car. As they fasten their seatbelts, they notice a spinning metal sphere slamming violently against the car's windshield, shaking and almost breaking the glass. Kevin, without hesitation, floors the gas and speeds off, but the three giant spheres made of chips chase after them. Kevin pulls off a crazy maneuver, making one of the spheres crash into a wall and shatter, but it quickly reassembles as if nothing happened. Kevin realizes that only speed will work and activates turbo mode, and they lure them into an abandoned construction site, using the open ground to run over one of the alien spheres, crushing it under the tires. Unfortunately, the car flips over them, crushing them hard, but surprisingly Kevin and Gwen come out almost unharmed and quickly regroup. Suddenly, from above a nearby bridge, the giant chip monster appears standing over them, ready to crush them. Kevin prepares himself, transforming his body into solid stone, ready to fight. But before the monster attacks, Ben arrives, flying in on his motorcycle, jumps into the air, and transforms into the armored dinosaur alien midair. Ben lands directly on the monster with a powerful blow. They gather again and transform into a small sphere, firing explosive laser beams at him. But Humongosaur's armored skin withstands the blasts. With his enormous strength, he starts smashing the spheres, breaking off large chunks. But the insects don't give up easily. The chips start gathering around Ben, forming a dome of aggressive chips that traps him, giving him no chance to escape. He flexes his muscles and blasts himself out of the metal dome, emerging like a real monster. The chips regroup again, transforming into a terrifying alien creature like a giant anaconda swirling through the air toward him. Ben lifts Kevin's car and uses it like a baseball bat, smashing the metallic anaconda with all his strength. The blow sends pieces of the creature flying, and things finally calm down a bit. After things settle, Ben returns to his human form and sits with Kevin and Gwen to decide what to do next. After a quick discussion, they decide they must take one of the chips as a sample and return to the lab to analyze it. They take Elena with them and bring it to Max. the one who is following the breaking news. And all the news is talking about the chips that have spread worldwide, and every moment, they increase even more. And as soon as the kids explain to him what happened, Max takes the news sample and starts analyzing it himself. He discovers that what they are facing are not independent alien entities. These are intelligent parts, external components of a space device that operates using mind control technology. After finishing the analysis, he decides to put the sample back in the jar, but a simple mistake happens. One of the chips slips out, and none of them notice that it starts moving quietly around the table, as if it's looking for prey. In the midst of everyone sitting and planning, trying to find a final solution to stop this invasion, Ben remembers something very important. He says that the people who were controlled used to talk to him about a queen, which means there is a leader for all this chaos. And if they get rid of her, no new chips will be created. Everyone sits in front of the computer and starts searching for any sign of her location. But amidst the chaos and tension, no one notices the chip that escaped, which quietly crawls onto Max's arm and, without him noticing, takes full control of him. A little later, Ben goes to ask him something but is shocked by a terrifying sight: his legendary grandfather. His eyes strange and his movements unnatural. He picks up a computer monitor and tries to throw it at Ben. Ben screams, and the others quickly run to the sound. Kevin acts at the critical moment. Without hesitation, he punches Max in the head, which calms him down a bit, just to stop him temporarily. But while they're busy with what happened, Max gets up, pushes them away, and activates a smoke device in the lab, flooding the whole place with smoke. Max escapes through the base tunnels without anyone being able to stop him. He goes back to the computer and analyzes the map of chips spread around the world, discovering that most are in big cities. But there's a strange point that catches their attention. An unnatural number of chips are gathered in a small town in Missouri, a rural town with nothing remarkable about it. Gwen quickly searches and discovers that this town is Shippett's headquarters, but their car has been crashed. So, Kevin laughs and reveals to him a new car. Ben gets in the new car, and everyone heads to the village. When they arrive, they see the company's headquarters, now turned into a large den for the infected. Once they're sure they're in the right place, they storm the headquarters without hesitation. As soon as they enter, they see Max, who is now one of the enemy, standing and talking to another infected person. But unfortunately, they can't do anything to him now and must focus on the real target, so they continue on. Suddenly, they find a massive advanced production line manufacturing chips en masse. In the middle of the line, Kevin notices someone standing and controlling everything. It's Victor. He's the man who was in the warehouse from the beginning. Everyone turns and looks at Elena, and doubt returns. Kevin speaks sharply. "Did you know that your father was behind all this?" But she defends herself, saying, "I swear I didn't know." She tells them he must be infected, pointing out his behavior is just like what happened to Max. But Kevin still can't believe it and accuses her of betrayal. But Ben takes her side and says they have to give her a chance. Everyone focuses on Victor. They notice something terrifying. Victor is producing an alien egg, which means one thing: the queen is inside him. So if they want to stop everything, they must stop Victor. Kevin immediately suggests they take him out, but Elena pleads with them, saying, "We should try to save him." Ben remembers his promise to her, that he would try to save Victor by any means, so he decided to transform and confront the queen herself. But Gwen objects, telling if the creature he turns into got infected by the chip, it could be the end of humanity. Elena, without saying a word, moves, but suddenly gets grabbed from behind by one of the infected, who screams. At that moment, all the chips are alerted to the intruders and chaos erupts. Ben reaches for the Omnitrix and presses it, ready to transform into any hero. But the chip's interference is still active, and as a result, Ben doesn't transform into any known hero. He turns into Nanomag, a hybrid between a human and a nanochip, with wings and the ability to enter literally anywhere. At this microscopic size, Ben flies quickly toward Victor, shrinking even more until he enters through his nostrils. As soon as he's inside, he starts hearing but the queen's voice. She's inside, running a whole colony controlling everything from inside his body. Outside, Gwen and Kevin try to distract the infected to give Ben a chance. Ben ventures deeper and finally reaches the queen. The queen tries to recruit him, offering him a part of her army if he joins instead of destroying him. But Ben refuses. The queen decides to destroy humanity right then, trying to activate all the chips. But at that moment, Nanomag gathers all his energy and releases an electric wave from inside Victor's body, causing a nano-shocking explosion. The queen starts to disintegrate, and her whole system collapses. After the queen dies, we see that all the chips fall at once, and the infected return to their normal selves. Even Victor falls to the ground, exhausted, but he's finally free. Ben escapes from his body and returns to his normal size, and everyone gathers around him. Gwen smiles. Then Kevin reaches out his hand and says, "You did it." And with that, our movie ends. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates.